Imagine you have no garden, no field, no expensive raised beds, only a pile of fallen leaves that autumn gives you. And yet you harvest potatoes by the pound, without digging, without heavy labor. Sounds impossible? Then listen closely, because what I'm showing you today could turn your entire idea of self-sufficiency upside down. It's not about trends. It's about a method that has worked for generations, but has almost been forgotten. A method that ensures food for you, even when the soil is compacted, when you have no tools, when the world around you becomes more uncertain. Before we continue, if true independence is important to you, then subscribe to this channel now. Leave a like so this knowledge reaches more people. And stay tuned until the end, because in the end, everything comes together, and you will understand why this method is not just clever, but can be essential for survival. We live in a time where the illusion of security is crumbling. Supply chains are breaking, food prices are rising, fertilizer is becoming scarce and expensive. More and more people are feeling it. We need alternatives. We need knowledge that works when nothing else works anymore. And that's exactly where an ancient technique comes into play that our ancestors knew long before there were synthetic fertilizers, tractors, or garden centers. They grew potatoes in leaves, not because it was trendy, but because it worked, because nature did the work, and because they understood what we have to learn again today. Nature is the best teacher if we are willing to listen. The history of this method goes way back, in the rural regions of Europe, in Ireland, in the mountains of Scotland, in the remote valleys of the Alps, where the soil was stony and poor, where people had to learn to work with what they had. This approach developed. It wasn't a scientific discovery, it was necessity, it was observation. People saw how the soil was rich and loose under the deciduous trees in the forest. They saw how everything grew where leaves piled up, and they wondered, why not potatoes too? So they tried it, and it worked. Generation after generation passed this knowledge down until industrial agriculture came, until machines and chemistry replaced the old ways, and suddenly this method seemed outdated, primitive, unimportant. But the opposite is true. In a world that is becoming increasingly fragile, this knowledge is more valuable than ever. Let's go through step by step how this method works, why it is so powerful, and how you can implement it immediately. I won't just explain the theory to you, but also the practical details that make the difference between an attempt and complete success. The first fundamental principle is, use what is there. Leaves are not waste, they are gold. Every autumn showers us with millions of tons of organic material. Most people rake it together and throw it away or take it to the landfill. Yet it is the perfect raw material for growing potatoes. Leaves store moisture like a sponge. They insulate against cold and heat like a natural blanket. They decompose slowly and create exactly the environment that potatoes love. Loose, moist, nutrient-rich, well-ventilated. Imagine laying a thick mattress of leaves on the ground, 30, ideally even 50 centimeters high. No digging, no plowing, no breaking of the soil, just leaves. It sounds too simple to be true, but that is exactly where the beauty of this method lies. Simplicity is its strength. On top of that, you place your potatoes, not buried deep, simply placed on the surface of the leaf layer, and then you cover them again with leaves, another 20 to 30 centimeters, depending on how much material you have available. That's all. Nature takes care of the rest. No fertilizer needed, no pesticides, no complicated techniques, just leaves, potatoes, and time. But which leaves are best suited? That is a question that occupies many. The answer is delightfully uncomplicated. Almost all deciduous leaves work excellently. Oak leaves are particularly good because they rot slowly and form a stable structure. Beech leaves are also excellent. Maple leaves decompose faster, which has both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that they release nutrients quickly. The disadvantage is that the layer settles faster, and you might have to top it up. Birch leaves are light and airy, perfect for good ventilation. Linden leaves are nutrient-rich. Hazelnut leaves also work well. What you should avoid are walnut leaves. They contain juglone, a substance that inhibits the growth of many plants, including potatoes. Oak leaves in too large quantities can also be problematic if used exclusively, as they are very acidic. But mixed with other leaves, they are perfect. The best strategy is indeed a mix of different leaf types. That gives you a balanced nutrient composition and an ideal structure.
The second fundamental principle, understand the cycle and the biological processes. When leaves decompose, heat is generated. This heat should not be underestimated. In the first few weeks after layering, the temperature inside the leaf layer can rise to 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. That is perfect. This warmth activates the potato. It signals the tuber that it is time to grow. The potato begins to sprout. Small white roots form on the underside, green shoots on the upper side. The shoots grow upward through the leaf layer toward the light. They find their way through the loose structure without you having to do anything. At the same time, new tubers form beneath the surface. And here something decisive happens, something that makes this method so special. The leaves do not decompose evenly. They form layers of different degrees of decomposition. At the very top, the leaves are still almost intact. Further down, they are already partially decomposed, soft, moist. At the very bottom, where they touch the soil, they have already become humus, a dark, crumbly substance rich in nutrients. These different layers create air pockets, cavities, a sponge-like structure, exactly the structure that potatoes need to form large, healthy tubers. In normal soil, especially in clay soils, the problem is often that too little oxygen reaches the tubers. Waterlogging occurs, the potatoes rot, or they become small and deformed. In a leaf layer, this problem doesn't exist. The structure is so porous that air can circulate freely. At the same time, it is moist enough that the tubers do not dry out. It is a perfect balance. No waterlogging, no compaction, no rot. The leaves regulate everything themselves. They are water reservoirs, temperature buffers, and nutrient sources all in one. You don't have to intervene, you don't have to monitor, you let nature do the work. The third principle, and this is crucial for many gardeners, protection without chemicals. Colorado potato beetles, fungi, late blight, wireworms. These are the classic enemies in conventional potato cultivation. Many gardeners reach for pesticides, fungicides, and chemical agents to combat these problems. But in a leaf system, the conditions are fundamentally different. The leaves create a microclimate that confuses pests. Colorado potato beetles, for example, orient themselves by the smell of the potato plant and certain visual signals. In a leaf system, these signals are masked by the smells of decomposing leaves and the many other microorganisms living there. The beetles don't find the potatoes as easily. They get distracted and irritated. At the same time, countless beneficial organisms live in the leaf layer. Mites, woodlice, beetles, springtails, millipedes, earthworms, a whole ecosystem of living beings that all play a role. These organisms decompose the leaves, make nutrients available, aerate the layer, and keep pests in check. Some eat pest eggs, some compete with harmful organisms for resources, some produce substances that inhibit harmful fungi. It is a living, self-regulating system, a system that becomes more stable the longer it exists. Late blight, one of the dreaded potato enemies, is favored by damp, warm conditions on the leaves. In a leaf system, air circulation is often better than in dense potato beds. The plants stand more individually. They are not so crowded. This reduces moisture on the leaves and thus the risk of fungal diseases. And even if late blight occurs, the tubers are protected. They lie deep in the leaf layer, far away from the infected above-ground parts of the plant. The spores must first travel through the entire layer to reach the tubers. In most cases, they don't make it. The best part? You don't have to spray anything, buy anything, or add anything. Nature works for you. You create an ecosystem, not a sterile production system, and ecosystems are resilient. They can buffer disturbances, they can adapt, they are the opposite of fragile.
Now comes something that most gardeners overlook because they have never tried it. The fourth principle: harvesting is child's play and gentle. In traditional cultivation, you have to dig. You have to go deep into the ground with a digging fork or a spade. You have to pull the potatoes out. Often you damage tubers in the process. It is physically demanding, it is time-consuming, your hands get dirty, your tools get dull, and in the end you might have damaged 10–20% of the tubers, which reduces their shelf life. With the leaf method, you simply push the top layer aside with your hands or with a small rake. The potatoes lie there, visible, clean, almost washed by the rain that has seeped through the leaves. They are not covered in soil. They are not hidden. You see them, you grab them, you put them in your basket undamaged. It is almost meditative. No dirt under your fingernails, no broken potatoes, no back pain from hours of digging. And here is the kicker that makes this method even more valuable. You can harvest continuously. You don't have to wait until the plant has completely died off. You can harvest the first potatoes, the so-called new potatoes, after just 10 or 12 weeks. You carefully push the leaves aside, feel with your hands for the larger tubers, take them out, and cover the plant back up. The plant continues to grow. It forms new tubers. You can come back 2 weeks later and harvest again, and again, and again. The system remains intact
the plant is not destroyed. You harvest over months, from July into October, instead of tearing everything out of the ground on a single day in autumn. This also means you always have fresh potatoes. You don't have to harvest 100 kilograms all at once and then store them and hope they don't rot. You harvest as needed, 5 kilograms this week, 3 kilograms next week. The potatoes stay in their natural storage, protected, cool, and dark, until you need them. That is real freshness. That is real flexibility. The fifth principle, and this is what makes this method so democratic, it works everywhere. You don't need good soil. You don't need to work in compost for years to have a fertile garden. You can apply this method on concrete, on compacted clay that is so hard you can barely get a spade in, on sand that is so loose it doesn't hold nutrients, in a meadow that has never been dug up, in an old parking lot, on an industrial wasteland. The leaves are the soil. They create the conditions the potato needs, regardless of what lies beneath. This means even if you don't have a garden, only a backyard with a concrete floor, a strip of land between two buildings, a corner that no one uses, a piece of overgrown property, you can grow potatoes there. You are not dependent on perfect conditions. You create them. That is revolutionary. This opens up self-sufficiency for people who otherwise wouldn't have a chance. City dwellers, tenants, people without land, people who thought gardening wasn't for them. I have heard of people growing potatoes in large boxes with leaves on their balcony, of people in community gardens on contaminated soil that is no longer suitable for cultivation, simply applying a thick layer of leaves and growing potatoes on top. The potatoes never touch the contaminated soil. They grow in the clean leaves. That is freedom. That is adaptability.
Stay tuned, because now it gets concrete and practical. The sixth principle, proper preparation and the optimal schedule. Timing is important, not everything, but a lot. Ideally, you start collecting leaves in autumn. September, October, November are the best months. That's when leaves fall in masses. Parks are full of them. Roadsides, forests, neighbors' gardens. Most people are happy when someone clears away their leaves. You can go through the neighborhood with bags and collect hundreds of kilograms within a few hours. Make sure the leaves are dry when you collect them. Wet leaves are heavier and tend to rot in the bags if stored too long. You can stack dry leaves, compress them, and keep them in bags or boxes until spring. Or you can layer them right away where you want to grow. If you layer them in the autumn, they have all winter to start decomposing. The rain moistens them, the frost breaks down the cell structures. Microorganisms begin their work. By spring, you have a semi-decomposed, perfectly prepared layer. In spring, when temperatures rise, when nature awakens, then the time has come to plant the potatoes. Not too early. This is a common mistake. Potatoes are sensitive to frost. If you plant them too early and late frosts still occur, the young shoots can freeze. In Central Europe, mid-April to early May is the ideal time in most regions. In higher altitudes or more northerly latitudes, it's more like early to mid-May. In mild regions, you can even start at the end of March. The rule of thumb, when the forsythias bloom, it's time for the potatoes. You use seed potatoes. These are special potatoes that are certified and free of disease. You can also use potatoes from the supermarket, especially if they have already started to sprout, but the risk of disease is higher. Professional seed potatoes are the safer choice. The potatoes should be about the size of a chicken egg. If they are larger, you can cut them, with each piece having at least 2 eyes. Let the cut surfaces dry for 1 to 2 days before you plant them. This prevents rot. Place the potatoes on the leaf layer with about 30 to 40 centimeters of distance between the individual tubers. If you are working in rows, maintain a distance of about 60 to 70 centimeters between the rows. This gives the plants enough space to develop and makes care and harvesting easier for you. Then you cover the potatoes with 20 to 30 centimeters of leaves. Press the leaves down slightly, but not too hard. You want air to get through, but the potatoes should also be well covered so that no light reaches them. Light turns potatoes green, and green potatoes contain solanine, a toxin that makes them inedible. And then it's a matter of waiting. Patience is required now. Nature works at its own pace. You cannot rush it. You can only observe. Trust. The seventh principle: patience, observation, and proper hilling up. After 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes 4, depending on the temperature, you see the first shoots. They break through the leaf layer. Small green tips making their way to the light. That is a magical moment. The moment you see that it works. Nature is doing what it is supposed to do. Now attention is required. When the shoots are about 10 to 15 centimeters high and stand above the leaf layer, it is time for hilling up. This is one of the most important steps that is often overlooked. Hilling up means you layer more leaves around the plant again. You cover the lower part of the stem with fresh leaves again, 10 to 15 centimeters high. Why is this so important? Potatoes don't form their tubers on the roots, as many think, but on underground side shoots called stolons. These stolons grow from the stem where it is dark and moist. The more of the stem you cover with soil, or in our case with leaves, the more stolons form and the more potatoes grow. Hilling up is directly responsible for your yield. You can repeat this process 2 or 3 times. Every time the plant has grown another 10 to 15 centimeters, you hill it up again. However, you should stop as soon as the plant begins to flower. From this point on, it concentrates on the growth of the tubers, no longer on the formation of new stolons. Further hilling up then does nothing more. Some gardeners report extraordinary yields through consistent hilling up, 5, 6, even 8 kilograms of potatoes per plant. That is far more than in traditional cultivation, and all just through this simple technique. It requires a few more leaves, a little more work, but the reward is immense. During growth, you should observe the plants. Look for pests, not paranoiacally, but attentively. If you discover Colorado potato beetles, pick them off. There are usually not many, and manual removal is completely sufficient in a small system. Look for the orange egg clusters on the undersides of the leaves and crush them. This is more effective than any poison and costs nothing. The 8th principle: water and moisture management. Leaves are excellent water reservoirs, but they are not a miracle. In very dry summers, when it doesn't rain for weeks, it may be necessary to water, but not much, not nearly as much in a normal bed. Watering thoroughly once a week is sufficient in most cases. Water slowly, so the water has time to seep through the leaf layer. It should not run off the surface. The water distributes evenly in the layer, reaches the tubers, and the excess drains away below. There are no puddles, no flooding, no waterlogging. The system regulates itself. The leaves hold exactly the right amount of moisture, not too much, not too little. If you live in a rainy area, in regions with regular summer showers, you may not have to water at all. The leaves hold the moisture so well that even longer dry periods of 2 to 3 weeks are no problem. Another advantage: the leaves prevent evaporation. In a normal bed, a lot of water evaporates directly from the soil surface. On hot days, this can be enormous. The leaf layer acts like a mulch layer, only better. It shields the moisture underneath. Evaporation is reduced to a minimum. This means every drop of water you give or that falls as rain is used efficiently. Nothing is lost. And now we come to something that many underestimate, but which is perhaps the most important aspect of this entire method. The 9th principle: long-term soil building and the creation of fertility. This method is not just meant for one season. It is not even just meant for a few years. It is a system that works over decades and gets better and better in the process. If you grow in the same spot year after year, always with fresh leaves, something wonderful happens beneath the surface. The leaves from the first year decompose completely. They become humus, real, deep black, crumbly, living humus. The leaves from the second year lie above them, half decomposed. The leaves from the third year, above them, fresh. A layered system is created, a vertical profile that becomes richer and more fertile over time. After 3, 4, at the latest 5 years, in a place where there was perhaps only hard clay before, you have a loose, fertile soil 30, 40, 50 centimeters deep. You haven't just harvested potatoes, you have created soil, and soil is the foundation of all life. Without soil, there is no food, no security, no future. Soil is not renewable on human timescales. It takes hundreds, thousands of years for soil to form naturally. But with this method, you accelerate this process dramatically. You create in a few years what would take nature centuries. And this soil is not just any soil, it is living soil, full of microorganisms, fungi, bacteria, protozoa, nematodes, all the invisible helpers that make nutrients available, protect plants, and keep the ecosystem in balance. It is soil where earthworms live, many earthworms. They mix the layers, create channels for water and air, and leave behind their nutrient-rich castings. Earthworms are indicators of healthy soil. If you have many earthworms, it is stable and structured. It does not erode. It is the opposite of the depleted, dead soils of industrial agriculture.
that can only be kept productive through massive fertilizer applications. Your soil needs no fertilizer. It is itself fertilizer. It is itself food for the plants. With this method, you build both simultaneously, harvest and future. You harvest today's potatoes and create the foundation for the harvests of tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, in 10 years. That is sustainability in the truest sense of the word. That is responsibility for the future. The 10th principle, and this becomes increasingly important in uncertain times, crisis resilience and independence. Imagine there is a collapse, economic, political, social. The scenarios are diverse, and we don't need to go through them in detail. But everyone feels that systems are becoming more fragile. Supply chains collapse at the slightest disturbance, energy prices explode, food is rationed or unaffordable. In such a situation, what then? Someone who grows potatoes and leaves needs no machines, no tractor, no plow, no motorized hoe. You only need your hands. You need no money for expensive fertilizer that depends on oil and gas. You need no pesticides from the chemical factory. You need no complex irrigation systems with pumps and electricity. You only need leaves and potatoes. Both are available almost everywhere. Leaves fall every year. Potatoes can be kept from your last harvest and used as seed, generation after generation. This method is so robust that it works even under the most difficult conditions. It is quiet, inconspicuous. You don't have to plow, which attracts attention. You don't have to work with loud machines. You can do it in the backyard, on a fallow area hidden in a patch of forest, between bushes. No one sees it from the outside. No one knows that food is growing there. And yet you have food. That is true security. That is true protection. In times of crisis, knowledge becomes more important than money. Knowledge of how to feed oneself is priceless. And this method is so easy to learn and implement that even people without any gardening experience can master it. Children can learn it. Older people can apply it without physically overexerting themselves. It is inclusive, it is democratic, it gives everyone the chance to be independent.
The 11th principle: diversity, rotation, and integration into a larger system. You don't have to grow only potatoes. The beauty of this method is its flexibility. The system also works with sweet potatoes, with Jerusalem artichokes, that wonderful, almost indestructible tuber that thrives even on the poorest soils and comes back year after year. It works with other root crops, and you can combine it with other cultivation methods. Potatoes in one year, the next year, when the leaves have turned into rich humus, plant beans or pumpkins or zucchini. They love the loose, nutrient-rich soil. In the third year, perhaps tomatoes or peppers. In the fourth year, potatoes again with new leaves. You create a rotating system, a crop rotation that renews itself. Each plant takes up different nutrients. Each plant leaves behind different nutrients. Each plant has different pests and diseases. Through rotation, you prevent problems from building up. Every year, the soil gets better. Every year, the harvest becomes more secure and diverse. You are not just building a potato bed, you are building a garden. A living, productive, self-sustaining garden. This is not a short-term solution. This is a system for decades, a system you can pass on to your children, a system that can feed generations. You can also try companion planting within the leaf system. Plant herbs between the potatoes that ward off pests. Tagetes, for example, the marigold, keeps nematodes away. Garlic between potatoes can reduce fungal diseases. Nasturtium attracts aphids and keeps them away from the potatoes. There are countless possibilities to refine the system, to optimize it, to adapt it to your specific situation. The 12th principle: harvest, storage, and seed production for complete autonomy. We've talked about the harvest, but let's go deeper. When is the right time for the main harvest? That depends on what you want. If you want new potatoes, small, tender potatoes with thin skin, then you harvest after just 10 to 12 weeks, as soon as the plants flower. These potatoes are perfect for immediate consumption, but they don't store for long. If you want storage potatoes, potatoes that last all winter, then you wait until the foliage has completely died off. This usually happens in September or October, depending on the variety and climate. Then the potatoes are mature. The skin is firm and thick. These are the potatoes you can store for months. For storage, it is important. The potatoes must be dry. Let them lie in the air for a few hours after harvesting until the moisture on the surface has evaporated. Then store them cool, dark, and dry. Ideal temperatures are between 3 and 8 degrees Celsius. A cellar is perfect, or a cool garage, or a root clamp if you have no other options. A root clamp is simply a hole in the ground filled with straw or leaves in which you place the potatoes and cover them up again. The earth insulates and keeps the temperature constant. Our ancestors stored their potatoes this way, and it works perfectly. To obtain seed, you simply keep back some of the best, healthiest potatoes from your harvest. Medium-sized potatoes, no damage, no signs of disease. Store them separately. In spring, when they start to sprout, they are ready to be planted again. You can multiply your own seed for years.
Over time, the potatoes even adapt to your specific conditions. They become more robust, more adapted, more productive. That is true independence. You are not dependent on seed companies. You are not dependent on supply chains. You have everything you need in your own hands.
Now everything comes together. You see the big picture. It's not just about potatoes. It's not just about leaves. It's about a mindset, a philosophy. It's about understanding that self-sufficiency doesn't have to be complicated, that the best solutions are often the simplest, that nature gives you everything you need if you are willing to look, to listen, to learn. This method teaches you patience. It teaches you that not everything has to be immediate, that growth takes time. It teaches you observation. You learn to read the small signs. When does the plant need water? When is it time to hill up? When is the harvest ready? You develop a feel, an intuition. It teaches you to work with nature, not against it. You learn that nature is your partner, not your enemy, that you don't have to control, but cooperate, that nature is wiser than any technology, than any system we humans can invent. And it gives you something back that is priceless: independence. The certainty that you can feed yourself and your family no matter what happens. No matter if the supermarkets are empty, no matter if prices become unaffordable, no matter if the systems we have relied on collapse. You have knowledge, you have skills, you have a plan, and you have food. Let me tell you something, and this comes from deep conviction. Most people wait. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect garden, the perfect weather, the perfect situation, the perfect instructions, the perfect tool. But perfection never comes. Perfection is an illusion. What comes are challenges, crises, moments when you are glad that you were prepared, that you didn't wait, that you started, even if the conditions weren't perfect. That pile of leaves in front of your door, on the street, in the park, it is not an inconvenience. It is not a tedious chore. It is an opportunity, a huge, obvious, recurring opportunity every year, an opportunity to start today, to take the first step today, to learn today how to become independent. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. Today, now, in this moment. The world we live in is changing faster than many want to admit. The signs are everywhere: economic, political, ecological. The old certainties are crumbling. The old guarantees are disappearing. But you don't have to be a victim of these changes. You don't have to watch helplessly. You can be a shaper. You can take action. You can be someone who has solutions when others only see problems. You can be someone who stays calm while others panic. You can be someone who acts while others are still talking, discussing, finding excuses. And everything you need for it lies literally in front of your door: a pile of leaves, a few potatoes, and the willingness to try, the willingness to get your hands dirty, the willingness to learn, the willingness to be patient, the willingness to trust nature. Imagine standing there in a year, in the exact spot where there is perhaps only concrete now, or hard grass, or infertile earth, and you pull potato after potato out of a fragrant pile of half-decomposed leaves, by the pound, more than you expected, more than you need. Imagine your children seeing that. Their eyes light up. They understand. Food doesn't come from the supermarket. Food comes from the earth, from our work, from our knowledge. They learn a lesson for life. Imagine your neighbor seeing that. They come by. They ask, "How did you do that? I thought nothing could grow here. I thought you needed a real garden. I thought it was complicated." And you tell them about this method. You show them how easy it is. You pass the knowledge on. Maybe you even give them a few potatoes as seed, and suddenly they begin to, and their neighbors see it, and they begin to. The knowledge spreads. Independence grows. The community becomes stronger. Because that is the last, perhaps most important point. Knowledge that is not shared dies. It only benefits one person. And when that person dies, it is lost.
But knowledge that is passed on, that is shared, multiplies. It grows. It reaches people you will never meet. It creates waves. It changes communities. It creates security not just for you, but for everyone around you, for your family, for your neighbors, for your city, for the next generation. That is the true power of this method. It is not just a cultivation technique. It is a tool for change, a tool for resilience, a tool for hope. In a world that is becoming more and more complicated, more and more fragile, more and more uncertain, this method is an anchor, a piece of security that no one can take away from you, a piece of knowledge that belongs to you forever. The potato in the leaves is more than a cultivation method. It is a symbol that life is possible even when conditions are difficult, that growth is possible even when the soil is hard, that hope is possible even when times are uncertain, that we are not helpless, that we do not have to be dependent, that we can be creators, creators of food, creators of soil, creators of the future.
If this video helped you, if you now understand what is possible, if you feel that something important was conveyed here, then subscribe to this channel. Press the bell so you don't miss any new videos, because there is still so much more to learn, so many techniques, so many methods, so much knowledge that has almost been lost and that we must rediscover. Share this video with people you trust, with people who are ready to learn, with people who understand that self-sufficiency is not a pipe dream, but life insurance, with people who want to act, not just talk. Send it to your friends, your family, your neighbors. Post it in groups. Make it visible, because the more people have this knowledge, the safer we all are. And write to me in the comments. I want to hear from you. Will you try it? Have you already had experience with similar methods? What challenges do you see? What questions do you still have? I read every single comment. I reply. I am here to help, because we are a community of people who have understood that the future doesn't just happen, but is shaped by us, by you, by every individual who is ready to take responsibility. The time for waiting is over. The time for acting is now. Go out, look around, see the leaves with different eyes. Don't see them as waste, but as a resource, as gold, as an opportunity. Collect them. Collect as many as you can. Find a spot. A small spot is enough. 3 square meters, 5 square meters. It doesn't have to be a whole field. Start small. Pile up the leaves, lay your potatoes, cover them up, and then wait. Observe. Learn. Trust. In a few weeks, you will see the first shoots. In a few months, harvest the first potatoes. In a year, have a soil that is richer than before. In a few years, have a system that feeds you, that gives you security, that gifts you independence. This is not fantasy. It is reality. This is possible for you, for everyone. The potato in the leaves doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It grows where it is. It uses what is there. It transforms the simple into the valuable. Be like this potato. Don't wait for perfection. Start where you are with what you have, and you will be amazed at what is possible. Your journey into independence begins now, today, with this video, with this knowledge, with your decision. Make it. Start and experience how a simple pile of leaves becomes food, becomes security, becomes the future. It is time. If this story has changed your view of the foliage in your garden, then subscribe to our channel and leave a like. We are digging up the history they tried to bury. Let's plant the future. The next treasure will be revealed soon.